Hey everybody, welcome to the video. It's going to be my core plays for week 6 of the NFL season over on Draftkings. Not really factoring ownership or anything here, just my straight up favorite plays on this slate. And it's going to be a short, sweet, to the point video. But before we continue, as always, if you guys could just leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, consider that subscribe button. It really helps me out, and I really do appreciate that. If you want to follow me over on social media, the handle's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. And if you want to support my content over on Patreon, it's always much appreciated. You get access to all the extra content that I put out each and every single week, including the entire data sheet, the cheat sheet, the notes, projections, and my Discord chat as well. So if you're interested, links down below for that. We got around 300 members, so if you want to come in, chat it up, feel free to do that. But if you're not interested, that's totally fine. Let's just dive into today's video. So leading us off with core play number 1, we have no other than Alexander Mattison at $7,200, who I imagine is going to be very popular this week. Dalvin Cook was ruled out officially yesterday, which means Alexander Mattison is going to assume the RB1 workload here for the Minnesota Vikings, and this is a team that likes to run the ball quite a bit. And Alexander Mattison, he's not just some scrub running back who's now in the lead spot because there's an injury. He's a very good running back, and he would get a lot more touches if he wasn't backing up Dalvin Cook, obviously, but the guy is pretty talented, and when he gets work, he typically plays pretty well. And we saw last week when Dalvin Cook went out, he had a very strong game versus Seattle, which I know what you're thinking. Seattle has a pretty bad defense, but coming into that game, Seattle's run defense was rated very, very highly, and Alexander Mattison looked fantastic, and I think that's going to carry over this week in this matchup versus the Atlanta Falcons, which we know is just not a very good defense. Now, they've been more of a pass funnel defense where it's much easier to pass on these guys than it is versus the run, but it's still not that hard to run on these guys. Now, if you're looking at the matchup, the numbers specifically, they haven't given up much to running backs on the ground, only 75 rushing yards per game and 0.4 rushing touchdowns. But the thing they struggle the most at is pass catching, or when it comes to the receiving ability of running backs. So they love giving up short passes to the running back position. They've been doing that for years now. And they're allowing nearly 9 catches per game, 63 receiving yards per game, and 0.8 receiving touchdowns per game just to the running back position alone. And we saw Mike Davis do exactly that last week, where he had like 9 or 10 catches, and he just had a very, very good game for Atlanta, scoring nearly 30 Draftkings points. Now, Mattison, he's not going to be just like a strict pass catching running back. He's going to get us around 20 carries on the ground, and he should get a few targets as well. We saw 3 targets last week, and I think we probably see anywhere from probably around 5 targets and 20 plus carries on the ground here for Mattison. And I just think he's in a great spot here. I mean, Dalvin Cook's a very good running back, and if you're looking at his numbers this season, what his workload has been as the starting running back, 18 carries per game, 100 rushing yards per game, over a rushing touchdown per game, and he also had a 12% target share. And if you're looking at Alexander Mattison's number, he had a 6% target share, and he's getting about 8 carries per game. So if you take Dalvin Cook out of the equation and you just give Alexander Mattison kind of both of those workloads, I mean, he should be a very good play. I know he seems pretty expensive, but I still think he can pay off this price tag pretty easily here. So big fan of Alexander Mattison, even though he is priced up, and I do think he's going to be pretty high owned, but I feel pretty good about it. And then getting into core play number 2, we have A.J. Brown at $5,600, who I just think is simply mispriced this week. And I like this game a lot for DFS purposes. It's pretty easy to stack this up, and the Titans offense as a whole was pretty cheap. Derrick Henry's not that cheap at $7,300, but even that's not that hard to fit him in if you want to. But this should be a pretty good game for DFS purposes. We have a 53-point over-under, a 28-point implied team total for the Titans, and it's only a 3-point spread as well. And both teams played a pretty decently fast pace. So definitely like this game for DFS purposes. And A.J. Brown, he's going to be my favorite play in this game and one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. I just think he's underpriced. Now, I know he's only played 2 games this season due to the injury, but in those 2 games, he's been fine. He's getting volume, and he had a touchdown early last week, and this is a really good spot here versus Houston. On the season, Brown's getting 8 targets per game. Again, small sample size, but a 25% target share and a 33% market share of the team's air yards. And we know last season how good he was with Ryan Tannehill. It seemed like he was hitting a big play each and every single week, and I was playing him a ton to end that season. And I know most people don't think of Ryan Tannehill as a super good quarterback, but if you're looking since week 7 when he took over last year, he's grading out as one of the best quarterbacks in the league in pretty much all these metrics, and PFF has him rated very, very highly since then as well. Like, Ryan Tannehill has been playing very, very well, and obviously that goes right in tune with A.J. Brown as his main target. And actually, the matchup versus Houston is kind of like the flip of Atlanta. So Atlanta is awful versus the pass, and they're better versus the run, and Houston is better versus the pass, but worse versus the run. But I think that's more so due to just how easy it is to run on the Houston Texans, and I think similarly with the Falcons, it's just so easy to pass on them that teams don't typically run as much. So it's still a good matchup here versus the Texans secondary, which I don't think is that great. And A.J. Brown does have a pretty big wide receiver versus cornerback advantage matchup according to PFF this weekend. So A.J. Brown, I think, should have a really solid game here. And it's mainly just the price tag. I mean, $5,600 is just way too cheap for someone who's as big as he is, who's as strong as he is, who's as fast as he is, and is a good route runner. And the guy's just a fantastic player. So love the price tag we're getting on A.J. Brown. And that price tag is more than likely only going to go up as the season progresses. All right, in core play number 3, we have David Montgomery 5,800, which I feel a little iffy about because I could totally see him busting in this spot. But the matchup is so good, and I like this price point that I'm just going to buy in the David Montgomery. If I go down with the ship with David Montgomery, so be it. But I love this spot for him. Now, the past 2 weeks, he's been somewhat okay in the fantasy point department, but what he's done on the ground has been awful. He hasn't passed 30 rushing yards the past 2 weeks, but he's also had 14 targets those 2 weeks as well. He had 8 targets last week versus Tampa Bay on Thursday Night Football, and the week before that he had 6 targets as well. And if he's going to get similar targets in this game, it's only going to boost his floor and make him a decently safe play, especially at this price point. But I'm mostly interested in the matchup. Now, he's not a huge volume running back. He's only getting around 12.6 carries per game right now and 50 rushing yards per game, but let's just look at the matchup really quick. So Carolina, they're 29th DVA versus the run and allowing 37.4 DraftKings points per game to the running back position, which is most in the entire league. And they're also allowing 112 rushing yards per game and nearly 2 rushing touchdowns per game as well. And they've been getting beat up in the receiving department as well for running backs, giving up nearly 9 catches per game, similarly to the Atlanta Falcons, and 60 receiving yards per game as well. And David Montgomery is a capable pass-catching running back, and we've seen him used in the passing game the past 2 weeks quite a bit, which does give me a vote of confidence for using David Montgomery this week with that passing game involvement. So I'm a fan of him at $5,800. I feel like he could bust here. So if you want to pivot in tournaments, sure, in cash games, I think he's a pretty strong play just because of the price and the ownership. Because he should be high owned enough where it's not going to kill you if he does bust. In tournaments, I still like it because he is a bit of he seems like a tournament guy because he could easily hit or miss. But I think he's fine in both formats, and I like that price point. And I'm just hoping he does what is in the picture behind me, where he's scoring on the Carolina Panthers, because that'd make me very happy this weekend, because I plan on having quite a bit of David Montgomery. And getting into core play number 4, we have Kenny GOLLADAY at $6,200. I just think he's a little bit underpriced. And this picture I found of him is very, very cool. So I was very happy with the picture I could find of him. But anyway, I love the Detroit Lions on this slate. If you want to pair him up with Matthew Stafford, I say go for it. You can run him back with one of the Jacksonville Jaguars receivers as well, like Laviska Shenault. But this spot for Kenny G specifically is just very, very good. This is the worst pass defense in the league according to DVOA ratings. They are ranked 32nd DVOA. And the Detroit Lions have one of the highest implied team totals on the slate this week at 29 points. Like, I figured this game would be pretty good for DFS purposes and would have a pretty high over-under, but I was expecting it not to be at 54.5 and the Lions having a 29 implied team total. I just think that's really, really high. I mean, I guess I could see them going under that, but I mean, the Jacksonville Jaguars defense is just not that good. And Kenny GOLLADAY, I don't see anyone that's going to be able to stop him. And it's only a 3.5 point spread. Sorry, I was looking at something else. Now, he's only played 2 games this season, so the sample size is a little bit low on these numbers, but 7.5 targets per game. He's scored in each game as well. He's got a 25% target share, a 30% market share of the team's air yards. And like I said, this matchup is great for him. He's got one of the biggest wide receiver versus cornerback matchups of the week, according to PFF this week. And just looking at the numbers specifically, like I said, 32nd DVA versus the pass, allowing 40 DraftKings points per game to the wide receiver position. And they're also giving 170 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown per game as well. So Kenny GOLLADAY, it should be a bit of a mismatch here, and I think he has a pretty big game. I think we see him go over 100 receiving yards and probably going to find the end zone once or twice in this game. And he makes an excellent stacking option with Matthew Stafford. They're both at similar prices, and they're very cheap at $6,300 and at $6,200. So big fan of Kenny GOLLADAY at $6,200 in this spot. And my 5th and final core play here is Chase Claypool, $5,200. And I promise I'm not just point chasing from last week, not just looking at the game log and saying, yeah, this guy scored 45.6 points, had 7 catches for 110 yards and 3 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown as well, so I'm going to lock him in. That is not my reasoning for it. It's nice to see that he had that huge game. We know Claypool has that kind of upside. The guy is an absolute monster. He's like 240-some pounds. He's very fast. He ran a fast 40, and he's just a mismatch for any cornerback. I know we should see a good amount of Denzel Ward in this game. He was a pretty good corner, but Denzel Ward is not the size of Chase Claypool, so I'm not really too worried about that. He should be able to body him up and do whatever the heck he wants. But the main reason I'm interested in Claypool this week is because Diontae Johnson is now out, leaving the wide receivers to be pretty much Juju Smith-Schuster and Chase Claypool. Yeah, some other guys are going to get some targets as well, but I would expect those guys to get the majority of the targets, and we know Ben Roethlisberger likes to key in a couple of guys. And with Diontae Johnson being out, that opens up a lot of targets. Now, if we're looking at Diontae Johnson's numbers this season, he keeps leaving games early, which is really skewing his stats. But the 2 weeks he played the full games and was healthy, he had nearly a 30% target share. Now, that's going to be completely gone here. And Juju Smith-Schuster and Chase Claypool are both going to be in very good spots here. And you're going to see an uptick in usage. And the matchup versus Cleveland is very good. They have been tougher against the run than they have versus the pass. Like, versus wide receivers this season, they are really, really struggling. Like, they're one of the worst teams in the league versus wide receivers. So they're 18th DVOA versus the pass, allowing 48.1 Draftkings points per game to wide receivers, which is the third most in the entire league, over 200 receiving yards per game, and 1.6 receiving touchdowns per game as well. And we know Claypool's got huge big play upside. He's got around a 30% market share of the team's air yards this season, only a 14% target share, but keep in mind, Diontae Johnson is out, and that's going to open up a lot on this offense for guys like Juju and Claypool, but Claypool is cheaper, and at $5,200, I think this is a steal. This price tag is only going to go up as the season goes on. He's a very talented wide receiver, and I love the upside in this matchup. So I know originally in the week I said I'm not going to be chasing this Chase Claypool game. I'd rather play Diontae Johnson, but I was assuming Diontae Johnson was going to play. And if Diontae Johnson was in, I'd still rather play him over Chase Claypool, but now that he's out, you can just hop me on board for the Claypool hype train this weekend. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for this video. I hope it was helpful. If it was, make sure you leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, considering that subscribe button really helps me out. I really do appreciate that. Inching our way to 7K subscribers, which is awesome. So I want to thank each and every single one of you guys. Follow me on social media if you want to. Support my content over on Patreon. That's always much appreciated. Helps the channel out. Helps me keep making these videos and the data sheets and all that fun stuff. And yeah, I'm going to head out of here, and hope you guys enjoy your football Sunday, and hope all of your favorite teams win, unless you're the Steelers, because I'm a big Browns fan. So I'm hoping Claypool is a huge DFS game, but I'm still hoping the Browns win one of those weeks for me. But I'm going to head out of here before I keep talking, so see you in the next one.